If I don't do nothing else, I'm gonna talk that law. Let's talk about it. So I came on earlier and we got news. They saying it's a verdict. It's a verdict. Now, did the jury follow the facts and the law? Or did they follow the voting party? We're going to find out. What did the jury decide? We got to get a verdict. We got to get a verdict. We got to get a verdict. We got to hear it. We got to hear it. Let me see if I can switch over. Let's see if we can figure it out. Let's see. It's coming down to the wire now. I can unmute it.
In this case, and for the most part, the jurors avoid eye contact with Donald Trump as they pass right in front of him and sit in that jury box.
And John Carl, we've just been told
moments where
we've just been told by our reporters who are there in the courtroom today, John, we'll get back to you, that the former president, Donald Trump, did stand as the judge entered that courtroom, fixing his jacket, taking a deep breath in the courtroom for those who can see him, able to witness that. One of our reporters down there on the scene reporting that suddenly there are many more court officers in the room. Secret Service supervisor standing in the back of that room. As you know, any court case here in New York involves a significant amount of security. This is unprecedented. There has been security there every single day of this trial. And many of these officers, when asked previously, you know, when do you get to go home? They are there for the entirety of these days, these proceedings. So even yesterday, for example, after the jurors left for the day, both sides, the defense, the prosecution, had to agree on the kind of testimony that would be reread back to the jurors. Those requests made by that jury, that those officers, everybody in that court responsible for keeping the courtroom safe would stay into the evening, along with the court reporters who would then have to read this testimony back. That's what played out this morning. Court reporters reading back the testimony that had been agreed upon by both sides, the defense and the prosecution. And then the judge, we knew Judge Juan Merchan would ask the jury, do you want all of the jury instructions read back to you or particular instructions? And that was how he was able to zero in, laser in on what it is they were looking for to have read back to them. I want to bring in Aaron Katersky again, live outside the courthouse. Aaron, it's our understanding the judge back in that courtroom, Donald Trump standing as the judge entered the court. What do we know about the jury at this point?
The jury has just entered the courtroom, David, filing right past former President Trump on their way in. Most of the jurors appeared to avoid eye contact as they took their seats in the jury box. The judge is now formally reading into the record.
Stand by, Aaron. Stand by. We are learning right now, Aaron, the foreperson is standing in that courtroom. Let's wait for reporting from inside the courtroom. The control room listening to this very closely. Aaron, you are as well from our team inside the courtroom. And in the overflow, the verdict is now being read. As you can see on the screen here, count one, guilty. Count two, the former president found guilty. Count three, guilty. We await count four here. As you can see, the first three counts, the former president of the United States, Donald Trump, found guilty of 3 felony counts so far. The foreperson in that courtroom. Count 4, guilty. Count 5, guilty. Count 6, guilty. As we continue to enter in what we're learning from the courtroom, it's our belief that first 19 counts, I'm being told, the former president has been found guilty.
Golly.
Of
if it's 19,
counts 20 through 23 found guilty as well.
All counts.
So correct me, control room, all the way through count 23 now found guilty.
That's
We are now
all.
up to count 26.
I mean, they're identical.
And
so,
count 27 found guilty as well. So
Right.
again,
so that's all 34 counts.
I'm going to pause here. He's been found guilty. 31 counts now of guilty as we wait for the graphic to catch up to the reporting coming from the courthouse. Count 33 and counts 34 coming in right now. Guilty on all counts. This jury in New York City, a jury of his peers, finding the former president guilty on every single felony count brought against him by the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. Aaron Katursky outside the courthouse. Let's go to you for first reaction.
An incredible verdict on this day in May, late May. The former president of the United States convicted as charged. 34 counts of falsifying business records. And David, as the crowd outside this courthouse found out, a big cheer went up from opponents of the former president who had been massing in the park across the street from the courthouse. Just a whooping cheer, and they continue to make a lot of noise. There have been supporters of the former president here as well. It looks like many of them are hanging in there, but are remaining silent as the former president has been convicted on all 34 counts of falsifying business records, meaning, David, the jury believed the Manhattan District Attorney's theory of the case that the former president falsified these records to cover up a conspiracy to corrupt the 2016 election by hiding lewd stories from his past. David?
Aaron, as we know from the instructions from the judge in this case, Juan Merchan, telling that jury that they could not convict solely on the testimony of Michael Cohen, Donald Trump's longtime former fixer, friend, and attorney, that there must be corroborating evidence in this case that they also believe in coming up with any sort of verdict. I glean from that then in the discussions within that jury room, and we will learn more in the days ahead, that they then pointed to other evidence. And we know about the request that they look at testimony from David Pecker, for example, to be reread back to them this morning, that is the kind of corroborating evidence that they must have leaned in on to come up with 34 guilty findings on every count here. The former president found guilty as we're on the air this afternoon. Aaron, again, testimony from David Pecker and other evidence presented by the prosecution, they must have leaned on, not solely the testimony of Michael Cohen here.
They were told they couldn't rely solely on Michael Cohen because he was an accomplice in the alleged, or now found, scheme to corrupt the 2016 election. And so they did need corroborating evidence and testimony, and they may have found it in the testimony of David Pecker, because one of the things they asked to hear again today was how both men described a meeting in August of 2015, 2 months after Donald Trump had announced his candidacy, when prosecutors said this conspiracy was hatched. David Pecker at the National Enquirer would buy and bury unflattering stories. He said he agreed to be the eyes and ears of the Trump campaign, and prosecutors said it amounted to a campaign finance violation. And Michael Cohen described the meeting very much the same way, saying that he recalled Pecker telling Trump he would be the eyes and ears of the Trump campaign. Perhaps that was the corroborating evidence and testimony that the jury needed, David. They also wanted to make sure they understood the judge's instructions of how to find out how to convict somebody of falsification of business records. And the judge told them that even if Trump didn't personally falsify the records, that he could be found guilty if he caused other people, like an accounting department at the Trump organization or Michael Cohen or someone else, to falsify those records on his behalf.
All right, Aaron Katursky, stay with us here. Aaron Katursky, who has covered every day of this trial for us outside the courthouse there. Obviously, we also have a team inside court, both in the courtroom and in this overflow room. And I just want to bring everyone at home watching our ABC News Live coverage here of an historic day here. The former President Donald Trump, all 34 counts in the hush money case that involved Stormy Daniels in the lead up to the 2016 election, found guilty again on
what y'all think
by a jury of his peers. Again, we know the makeup of this jury come from all cross-section.
Yeah, I think he got a fair shake in New York.
2 attorneys among that jury pool. It's been said in other cases along the way that the prosecution doesn't always like having lawyers sitting in that jury box, but in this case, both sides agreed to those 2 jurors in particular, lawyers who perhaps, as we'll find out in the days to come, might have helped explain some of the very detailed jury instructions from Judge Juan Merchan. Again, the former president you see there on the screen found guilty on all counts. Some of the color coming in from the courtroom from our team. The former president, Donald Trump, watching very closely as the yes when asked if this was their verdict. The district attorney himself, Alvin Bragg, stern-faced in the courtroom. Todd Blanche was the one who asked to poll the jury. Of course, that is the lead defense attorney in this case for Donald Trump. Donald Trump watching again as they were being polled, looking over at the jury as each one of them was individually polled on the verdict. One of our reporters describing the former president as slumped over in his chair, slumped somewhat, looking at the jury as they delivered the verdict, adjusting his head each time to get a look at each of the jurors as, again, they were polled individually. So again, just describing, and it's obviously the limitations of the court system here in New York, no cameras in court. But as we know, we've described to you what would happen. The judge would enter that courtroom. Donald Trump would stand along with others in that courtroom. The jury then re-entering, the 4-person standing, saying we do have a verdict. The judge asking the 4-person what that verdict would be. And then we.
So a new poll had came out today, and the poll pretty much asked the American people, will this verdict change your vote? And well, I guess unsurprisingly, a lot of them say no. They say whether guilty or not guilty, they will still vote the way they're going to vote. So, you know, this is just the beginning. You still got to go through the appeals process, and I'm sure he's probably going to go home. So I guess we'll listen in a little bit more to see if they're going to put him on house arrest. It'll be wild if they just try to take him into custody. That's going to be shocking to me because, I mean, I don't even know how would you even be able to do that. But I know the news reporters are going to dance in the street tonight saying that, hey, he's a convicted felon. And, you know, obviously that's something that Trump never wanted to have to hear or go through. So, you know, I'll just stay on this a few more minutes. It can take years, but for certain cases like this one, they can expedite it. They can put it in front of the pile. And I'm sure they will. I know Harvey, was it Weinstein? His case, it took years. And he, you know, actually was sitting in jail. But for this one, I think they're going to move pretty fast. And if the state courts, you know, don't do it, then the federal courts can step in to see. And, you know, if Merchan, the judge, put him on house arrest and he can't campaign, you know, I'm sure the lawsuits are going to come flying now to, you know, to say that he has a right to campaign. And by having him on house arrest will effectively stop him from campaigning. So that's going to be the issue that, you know, the judge is going to have to decide right now. And I was hoping that maybe we can listen to just a few more minutes to see what they're going to do about, as far as, normally if somebody's guilty, you know, the judge will take him into custody right away. But I don't think that's going to happen with this one. But it's New York, so who knows? Let's see. We can go back over here and just see if we can listen to a little bit more of ABC. I'm going to fast forward it to wherever they at.
Just let me stop you right there, because viewers at home are going to ask immediately, what does this mean? Could the former president be sentenced to potential time behind bars? We know there is the potential for that, though extremely unlikely for a first-time offender, correct?
I think it is unlikely. This is the lowest level felony in the state of New York. We talk about misdemeanors versus felonies, but there's also different levels of felony. This is a Class E felony, the lowest kind. Donald Trump has never been convicted of a crime before. I think as a result, it is unlikely, not impossible, that he would be sentenced to prison time in connection with this case. There are other options, right? There is probation. I think the other potential option could be home confinement. Can you imagine that? And in an effort, if it were to happen before the election, someone who wants to be out on the campaign trail. Again, I think any serving of a sentence, though, very unlikely to happen before the election. A number of things will happen first. First, he'll do an interview with the probation department. That is typical in any case. You have a meeting where you talk to he's going to have this meeting with a probation officer, because the probation department then recommends what sentence they think the person ought to get. And then number two is a sentencing happen weeks, months ahead. There's going to be appeals in this case, et cetera. So I think that the actual serving of the sentence, whatever it is probably some time away.
Sometime away, Judge Juan Merchan will take into account whatever the probation officer suggests after this meeting that you say will take place, regardless of whether you're sitting across from somebody who does what you and I do, or somebody who works in sort of any sector here in New York City and beyond. But this is the former president of the United States who will also have to sit across from this probation officer. How soon would we then hear from Judge Juan Merchan what the sentence will be?
So I think that we're going to see when the sentencing date is set, right? So we're watching some people.
We are watching the courthouse very closely. Donald Trump was expected to be able to leave the courtroom today. Of course, as Dan mentioned, the sentencing will not come for many weeks here. Not expected, certainly. We are expecting the former president to leave the courthouse. Have we seen him in front of the camera yet?
I know
we have not seen him yet. As we know,
he's going to be
he generally addresses reporters when he comes out of the courtroom. There's no promise here that he will today. Sentencing is set for early July. July 11th is what we've been told. Judge Juan Merchan will deliver the sentence on July 11th, which is obviously a little more than a month from now. There is no bail. He will leave court today, a free man for now, certainly. And as you heard Dan report there, and legal analysts across the board have said, that jail time in this case, extremely, extremely unlikely. But obviously it leads to some immediate questions right away when you're talking about the presumptive Republican nominee in the race for the White House. Does it change the race? At least right now, it doesn't. He can continue to run for president regardless of this conviction on 34 felony counts today. Some have asked, will Donald Trump be able to vote? I had been doing some reading on that because he now has residency in Florida.
This was your vote all along. In the state
of Florida, Dan, they often defer to where the case was tried. Is that not correct?
Correct.
So in New York, they allow certain felons to vote of certain categories, right? So it's my understanding that Donald Trump would potentially be able to vote. But let's watch the former president.
Oh, here you go.
Expected to address the cameras.
He's mad as hell.
Let's listen.
This was a disgrace. This was a rigged trial by a conflicted judge who was corrupt. It's a rigged trial, a disgrace. They wouldn't give us a venue change. We were at 5% or 6% in this district, in this area. This was a rigged, disgraceful trial. The real verdict is going to be November 5th by the people. And they know what happened here, and everybody knows what happened here. You have a Soros-backed DA and the whole thing. We didn't do a thing wrong. I'm a very innocent man, and it's okay. I'm fighting for our country. I'm fighting for our Constitution. Our whole country is being rigged right now. This was done by the Biden administration in order to wound or hurt an opponent, a political opponent. And I think it's just a disgrace. And we'll keep fighting. We'll fight till the end and we'll win, because our country's gone to hell. We don't have the same country anymore. We have a divided mess. We're a nation in decline, serious decline. Millions and millions of people pouring into our country right now from prisons and from mental institutions, terrorists, and they're taking over our country. We have a country that's in big trouble. but this was a rigged decision right from day one with a conflicted judge who should have never been allowed to try this case, never. And we will fight for our Constitution. This is long from over. Thank you very much.
Todd Blanche at the president's side. Todd Blanche, the defense
Yeah.
attorney, the president around, not taking any questions. Former President Donald Trump, a short time after.
So I do agree that it will be overturned, but according to some people, the prosecutors don't really care if it's overturned. I mean, you know, he's going to be on probation. They don't care about that. They wanted this done before the election to, you know, influence the outcome of it. I mean, that's what it boils down to. Some people don't want to admit that. You know, Texas T, they want to smear and change the voters' minds. I mean, that was the goal of having the trial right now. It wasn't by mistake that it happened right now. It could have happened after the election, but they needed it to happen right now. But, you know, will that change the American people's minds? And a poll came out today saying that it won't. I mean, it's still historic. It's still a historic trial. I mean, this is, you know, it's history. Yeah, it could, because it could galvanize his base. You know, it can galvanize. They be so angry they'll show up in numbers. And what Biden have to understand is what will make his base show up in those same amount of numbers, because his base is not angry. I mean, you know, it's not like you're gonna have, okay, when it was the first Barack Obama, okay, people showing up. It's the first. Maybe they showed up because Kamala, the first vice president. But what's going to excite them to show up now? But Trump's people have a reason to show up. They have a damn good reason. To show up. And the poll showed, you know, it came out. It showed that even if Trump was to be found guilty today, it will not change the minds of people votes. And, you know, and I kind of figured that because people are going to vote the way they're going to vote. Let's see if I can show it right quick. Two and three registered U.S. voters say a guilty verdict would not have no effect on whom they plan to vote for in the presidential election. Overall, 67% of voters said a conviction would make no difference for them in November, including 74% of independents. That's significantly higher number than the percentage of either Republicans or Democrats who said it wouldn't change their vote. In fact, 25% of Republicans said they would be even more likely to vote for Trump. See, even more likely to vote for Trump if he were found guilty by a jury, while 27% of Democrats said they would be less likely to vote. Okay, 27% of Democrats, I mean, they're not going to vote for him anyway. A split that underscores hardened partisan perspectives on candidate Trump. So, yeah, there you have it. There you have it. I mean, the numbers are the numbers. And, you know, the facts are the facts. We saw what happened after the mugshot. He raked in the money. I agree, Texas T. Yeah. But you called it. You said that New York, you know, you said it was going to be guilty. And now that this verdict is in, he get to go home. They already said he get to go home. He come back July 10th. And he's going to be officially sentenced July 10th. But, I mean, they're already talking about probation. He got to go meet with a probation officer Like, that's so embarrassing to try and like take his dignity from him. Go, meet with your probation officer. And in some states, I'm not sure about New York, when you're convicted of a felony, it's mandatory that you have to submit your DNA. Isn't that wild? And it goes into a database. Let's see. And New York may be one of those states. So yeah. So that's where we're at. Oh, let me see. This just gave Trump the presidency and the Denver to them to realize that it's going to be, I believe, record-breaking numbers for sure. Record-breaking numbers. Now, will it be overturned? Even if not in the state courts, I'm sure it will be overturned, in the federal courts. And let's not forget where the buck stops, and that's the Supreme Court. And obviously, Trump put 3 of the 9 on the court, and then another 3 he didn't put on the court, but they still are Republican leaning. So it's like a 6-3. So I'm sure they're going to have issue with the trial itself, but the way that the New York law is written, where the prosecutors don't have to prove that extra crime. They just, whatever extra crime, pick one. Well, that violates the 6th Amendment, because you have to be able to know what you're accused of so you can properly defend yourself. So when you play in the pick one game, then you run afoul of the Constitution and you end up violating the constitutional rights of the defendant. So that's where we're at. And I think as soon as I had got off and was trying to fix something to eat, because my friend's flight got delayed a little bit longer, they said it was a verdict. A verdict came out of nowhere. Now, so I'm thinking it was some holdouts, some holdovers that was trying to, they were trying to pull over to the majority side, and the holdouts, it ended up working. They ended up getting the holdouts over to their side. Let's see. Honestly, I'm pissed, but had this not happened, the streets might be filled with violence like it will be in November. Wow. Let me see. Let me see if I can read. Let me read into this. Honestly, I'm pissed, but had this not happened. So you're saying if he was found not guilty, there would have been protests in the streets. And when he wins in November, there's going to be protests in the streets. I'm guessing that's what if I'm reading that right. I mean, either way. Okay, yes, okay. Well, I'm thinking either way, someone had to go home a winner and someone had to go home a loser. So there's probably going to be protests. I'm sure Trump people right now are super upset outside their courthouse. So I'm sure they're going to be, marches and some type of protesting today. And you can hear it in Trump's voice. He is not happy. Yes, the case may be overturned, but I mean, who wants to live with this moment in time? That's almost like the mugshot. Even if he beats that case, the mugshot is forever in the history books. Even if you do beat the case. Despite what it said, Trump supporters don't go after. I mean, and I mean, I guess that could be just depending on how you look at it, because the January 6th situation, and some people are saying those weren't Trump people. Those were other groups that were there that that attack the officers in the Capitol. So I mean, it just depends. And no matter what, I don't care what group it is, you're gonna have a few oddballs. I think we can agree on that. You're gonna have some crazy that just go too far. I don't care what group you in, because everybody's not mentally stable. He was expecting it though, because he was talking like he would go to jail. I mean, he knew where he was at. I mean, it didn't help that he was already saying that he wasn't going to get a fair trial. The jury members wasn't going to be fair. I mean, when they hear you say stuff like that, it's not gonna help. They really don't. And the only people that died on January 6th were. Wait a minute, I thought a Capitol. So no Capitol officers died that day? I thought I remember that. Maybe, that's been so long ago. I hope they don't overreact though. People just need to stay calm, realize there's a right. Don't do don't go in March, and because look, the January 6th situation is a prime example. They did all of that and they ended up going to jail, and it's not worth it. I mean, it's not like they taking him away in handcuffs. Okay, I thought Capitol. I must have had it wrong. Let me see. See, when I like to have my facts right, because sometimes it be so much information out there. Sometimes you could miss something. So I always like to know what I'm talking about if I'm going to be on here. Okay. Let me see. These are the people who died in connection with the Capitol riot. Okay, Air Force veteran was shot by police. Kevin Green's son died of a heart attack. Somebody with Stampede. Benjamin had a stroke. Mr. Greenson, Mr. Phillips out of natural causes. Somebody had an accident overdose. In the days and weeks after the riot, 5 police officers who served January 6th died. Officer Brian, he was attacked by the mob, died. Another officer killed himself. Yeah, so it was insane. It was a lot. It was a lot that day. It was a lot. It was a lot going on. But I don't think it was it necessary? No. The only person that was actually happening, she was shot by either. And that was sad. But hopefully they let the appeals process play out. I mean, Trump's at home, so there's no reason for them to go do something and put themselves in jail. And then they're going to be in jail and Trump's going to be at home. I mean, it wouldn't even make sense. And who knows? The federal courts might step in. The Supreme Court is still weighing whether Trump is entitled to immunity from state prosecutions. So, they still haven't ruled on that. And if they say he's entitled to immunity, then this verdict is void. And then obviously Fonnie Willis in Atlanta, in Fulton County, that case goes away. And then it'll be the 2 federal cases that's left. Rose. Okay, Rose. Yeah, it was unnecessary violence and death that didn't need to happen. Yeah. So there we have it. There's nothing else now to do but wait and see. This was a long, drawn out case, and now we just gotta wait for the verdict. Not the verdict, the sentencing, which is we call it another form of the verdict in Texas. You get two parts: the guilt to innocence, and then the sentencing. And now, well, it is July 10th, so he's get to be a free man. Thanks for approaching this from a legal standpoint and not political. UTLA, AV, and the legal good are all above board. Go by the. Oh, thank you for that. I do appreciate it. I didn't want people to think I was leaning one way or the other. I just want to go by the facts in the law. And I hope, the appeals courts take a good look at it so it can set precedent in New York. Because not only for Trump, but all the other people that's being convicted under this pick one scheme. It don't matter which one, pick one. What? Because the Sixth Amendment clearly says that you have a right to know what you're being accused of so you can prepare a proper defense. And the pick one in New York, I mean, the law is not a good law. Now, if they want to go back in and say what the prosecutors have to explain what the other crime is and prove that the other crime was done beyond a reasonable doubt, that's fine. But if you just say, hey, he did this with the intent to commit another crime or conceal another crime, and then they say, what other crime? It don't matter. Pick one. Tax return law, federal campaign law, state campaign law. Just pick one. And then they're already saying that the judge, he donated to the Democrats. And his daughter supposedly works for the Democrats, so it doesn't look good. Oh, this won't happen again just for Trump. Same as Tisha, the governor said that was a one-off, yeah. But I believe there's been other, non-famous people, I'll say it like that, non-famous people that have been charged under this scheme, this type of law, whether it's a normal businessman, that was charged. I mean, I think even Alvin Bragg said it in his news release when it first happened that he has had other cases that he has charged the same way, which is obviously a problem. Because now you can have innocent people. Everybody's not Trump. Everybody's not going to get to go home. Okay, this is from Alvin's Bragg. I'll show y'all this last thing. And this is from Alvin Bragg's release when he first charged Trump. So this is just his District Attorney Bragg announced a 34 count indictment. And this is what he had on his chart that I had took note of right here. Under DA Bragg, 117 counts of felony falsified business records filed by this office. From 2019 to 2021, 168 counts of felony falsified business records filed by the office. Examples of false business record cases, obviously Trump case, federal banking violations, embezzlement, and sex crimes. So 168 other cases have been filed by Bragg's office under this same type of scheme. And if the law is unconstitutional, then now those 168 other cases has a potential to be overturned if they were, if they resulted in convictions. Because it said just filed and it said that they were convicted. This is another reason I love Texas and won't be moving anywhere else unless it's to care or stay. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, it's no place like Texas. I will say that. We're about full. Not full. There's no place like Texas, though. I didn't travel a lot of different places, but I guess I was born and raised here, so there's no place like home. Yeah, we don't always agree with, the government, the state government or local government sometimes, but it's still home. Well, I do appreciate y'all joining, popping back on real quick. Y'all probably like, hey, he just got off. Why am I getting another notification? Leave me alone. Talk that law. But all right, I definitely appreciate it. It was a fun case to cover because it's historic. This never happened before. And this is all part of history. So we can say we were alive in the 200 and some odd, how many years the U.S. been created? And, we were alive and we were here to see the trial and to see a verdict. And possibly we hope we'll still be here when if the verdict is overturned. And that's sad. I don't know how old the country was. It 246 years, 247, somewhere around there. Y'all know what I mean. Well, thank y'all. Hopefully we'll be back with some more topics. If y'all know something interesting, just leave it in the comments and let me know, and I'll definitely cover it. All right. But before I go, as always, no legal advice intended. I'm a lawyer, but I'm not your lawyer. I'm just here to talk that law. All right. See y'all later.